Hey folks, what's up? This is Adam here, aka the Cena Guy. I know I made a video recently saying I won't be doing much with this channel anytime soon, but I was meaning to go to work all day today, but with the job situation that I'm in, the soldier's been rained off and we can't do work today due to bad weather conditions and shit like that. So, anyway, on the way home, I was listening to the radio and I was talking about like thriller movies. And while I was listening to the radio, the subject about thriller movies came up, and one thriller movie that was listed was this film right here, The Sixth Sense. And this movie, it isn't one of those forgettable movies. If anything, people are going to remember this for being one of the best thriller movies ever made, at least in my opinion. Because the film stars Bruce Willis, and Bruce Willis has been in loads of roles. People mainly remember him from the Die Hard movies and other roles such as that. And I think Bruce Willis is a great actor. You get the odd one of two people saying he's not that much of a good actor. Well, I disagree with those comments because I think Bruce Willis has been in loads of great roles. And I think he was really brilliant in this movie, playing the child psychiatrist, Malcolm Crowe. Thought he did a great job of his role in this. And while I was listening to the radio and they talked about this movie briefly, I was like, jeez, I can't believe I didn't think of that movie sooner. Because I remember watching this movie when it first came out. My mother showed it to me, God bless her soul. And she says, have you seen this movie, Adam? You need to check this movie out. You're like Bruce Willis, and everyone's talking about this thriller. You got to check this thriller out. And there were scenes where she found them chilling. Because one thing about my mother, she hated horror movies. And she hated any movies that involve extreme violence and stuff like that. But this is a little bit of a different kettle of fish because it's not an extremely gory film. It's one of those suspense films, those thriller movies where they get you thinking, oh shit, what's going to happen next? And there are a few jump scenes in this movie and it mainly works on the mind. It's like a suspense type of thriller, not like a gory adventure. It's like a suspense type of thriller. So you get your different types of categories in movies, and this is a very unique one. As you can tell, this is a Blu-ray. Originally, I owned this movie on VHS, then DVD, and then I eventually got the Blu-ray. But really, Blu-ray, was nothing extremely special about the Blu-ray, especially the bonus features. It's feature film, Blu-ray scope. There's like fuck all in the features in this. So Blu-ray wise, it's nothing special. Well, at least in my Blu-ray version, there's nothing to speak of. You know what I mean? But still, with a Blu-ray film, when did this movie come out exactly? Just let me check out when this movie exactly came out. The official release date. Well, in the United States, August 6th of 1999. Yeah, that's right, on 1999. So we're going back a bit, but I remember when this movie first came out and I first watched it, I was really intrigued. And I became a big fan of the movie straight away. Even though I like my gory movies, this one in particular, for what it was, I really did enjoy it. Basically, to cut a long story short, this movie, Bruce Willis plays this child psychiatrist by the name of Malcolm Crowe. He deals with sick children who have mental issues. And the film opens up with him and his wife having an evening in the house. Malcolm's just won an award for all his work that he's done with children, trying to make them feel better. Malcolm's put his work first before everything else. He's a very hard worker. He's determined to, make a success of his job by helping out all these children who have got these sicknesses and suffer from all these different mental disorders. And, his wife is proud of his work. She thinks that he's putting his work in front of her, but still at the same time, loves and respects him for that. And he's just won an award from the mayor for all his hard work and success. And during this time, they're about to make love, when all of a sudden they encounter this guy in their bathroom who used to be a patient of Malcolm's. He used to be a child, but now he's fully grown. He's near enough naked in the bathroom. And his name's Vincent, and he tells the story about how he was one of his failed patients, Malcolm just put it down with him harding to cope with his parents' divorce, and he's got severe psychiatric mental issues, feeling lonely, feeling frightened. One thing leads to another. I mean, this scene was pretty intense because the guy Vincent, was like expressing how he was feeling, like in terms of sadness and suffering. He looked up at Malcolm as a disappointment with not helping him get over his illness, and this results in him shooting Malcolm in the stomach area, and then he commits suicide by shooting him once in the head. We don't know what happens at this point. We just know that Malcolm's been shot, and the film skips forward to like the present day. And this was like an important part in the film because right off the bat, I'll tell you straight away that this movie, what makes this movie so unique is not just the acting, because the acting's spot on this movie, the story's spot on in this movie, the suspense is spot on in this movie, but I'd have to say the main highlight of this movie is the twist at the end. I never saw the twist coming. It's a twist that people still talk about. And in fact, people still talked about the twist when I listened to this on the radio this morning. So it was a twist we didn't see coming, at least not from my view, but I'll get to that later on. The film skips to the present day. Malcolm appears to be alive. And now he's focusing on this other child who is living with a single mother. His name is Cole, a little boy. And just like all his other patients, he's having mental problems. We learned that his mother is a single parent. Basically, that's the next boy who is aiming to get well and back on the improvement of his life. He follows him into a church, and they have a conversation, a brief encounter. Malcolm's determined to bond with this boy, ask him questions, try and get more information out of him so he can work on the state of his illness in order to improve his life. He tries to understand more about his background, about how he grew up, and he's playing with some toy soldiers, and he's trying to learn more about what Cole is thinking, how he's feeling. He's basically like trying to get to the root of his disorder. And basically trying to do whatever he can to gather as much information as he can in order to improve this little boy's life, basically. Throughout the first half of the film, we get Cole in certain situations. We'll learn more about the character. There's mysterious things going on around him because there's a scene where he's at like the kitchen table. We see the mother, like I already mentioned, is a single mother. She's doing her hardest to try and bring Cole up and be a good parent, but she's suffering from nerves as well. There's a scene where she enters the kitchen and all the cupboard doors are open, where she only left the kitchen for a few seconds. There's mysterious things going on in the house that we're unaware of. We learn that Cole is a loner at school. He's got no friends. He's very lonely. There's a part of him that wants to be alone because he's too scared about how people will feel if they get to know him. So he's traumatized. He spends most of his life day in and day out being traumatized by these events that we're unaware of until we find out what his problem is throughout the movie. So he's being bullied at school, particularly by this one kid, Tommy, I think his name was Tommy. He thinks he's better than all the other kids because he got to act in some sort of cough commercial. He's a bit of a bully at school. He bullies Cole. We even get to a scene in the school where Cole freaks out, calling his teacher Sterling Stanley, because he asks him a question about what the school used to be used for millions of years ago. Well, not millions of years ago, years ago. And Cole says it was a place where they hanged everybody, and this is clearly obviously because Cole can see the ghosts of all the people that were hanged in the building, and it confirmed that later on in the movie. But to cut a long story short, Cole is seeing dead people. He's seen dead people walking around like regular people, and he's traumatized by this. We see scenes with people hanging by their necks from the ceilings. We see scenes of... we even see a scene of a little boy in Cole's house where he's got a gunshot wound to the back of his head, where he says, "Come on, I'll show you my father's gun, come on." And he's got like a gunshot wound at the back of his head. Even the disturbing scene which terrified me of that woman in Cole's kitchen where she had the cut wrists. We get that scene. I have to say the most touching scene was the scene where he's helping that woman, that little girl who was poisoned by her evil mother. but I'll explain that in a minute. So basically, Cole's been traumatized by all these ghosts. Bit by bit, Malcolm's trying to get more information out of him so he can improve the boy's state of mind. And the film doesn't get dull in any type of way, because Malcolm, at the same time, we're learning more about his life. He's trying to understand why his marriage is failing. Him and his wife aren't talking. And she's suffering from a mental state as well because she's taking antidepressants. And Michael Cole, Michael Cole. Oh, sorry about that. Malcolm. Michael Cole. Malcolm is trying to get to the root of the problem as to why he's on rocky relationships with his wife. Because his marriage is basically failing. They're not talking to each other. They're not eating together. They're not communicating. And he's trying to get to the root of why his marriage is failing, basically. And that's all part of the twist towards the end of the movie. So we learn more about Cole's life, about him, about his background and being traumatized. We learn more about Dr. Malcolm and his life, his failing marriage. But despite his marriage failing, he's still determined to work deeper and harder than ever to gain self-respect in himself, to try and improve the little boy's life. And throughout the first half of the movie, you get like a storytelling of the background between these two characters, and at the same time the bonding, and that alone makes the film really interesting. The bonding of these two characters, the way they're trying to communicate with each other, the way Malcolm's trying to get information out of the little boy, Cole, and the way he's communicating with him. It's like that scene in the living room where he's like playing that game with him, where he's saying, if what I say is right, take one step towards the chair. If what I say is wrong, take one step back towards the doorway. So he's basically trying to get information out of him, but like in a unique way. Like it's not like between two adults or two kids. It's one adult and one kid, and Malcolm's trying to work his way around the kid to try and get him to tell things. It's like that game they're playing, where he's taking one step forward, one step back. So it was great communication, bonding, at least in a unique way. But we learn what happens. We find out what Cole is hiding from everybody, because there's a scene where he goes to a kid's party. He gets bullied by these two kids. He ends up getting locked in the attic, and there's a ghost in the attic with him, which causes him to faint in the hospital. Which causes him to faint, and he goes to the hospital and all that. And while he was in the hospital, Malcolm visits Cole, and Cole confirms that he sees dead people. So he knows the root of the problem there. That's the first half of the movie. Getting all these little suspense scenes and the characters bonding and learning about their backgrounds at the same time. So that's the first half of the movie. The second half of the movie mainly focuses on Bruce Willis's character and Cole trying to sort out the issue. And at the same time trying to figure out why Malcolm's having these failing marriage problems, basically. Malcolm basically comes to the solution that the best way to make all these ghosts go away is if Cole communicates with them, listens to their problems, and he can help them in any way to resolve the problems that they're going through. Because one scene I love in this movie is where Cole's bonding with that girl, Kyra, I think her name was, Kayla, or something like that, because there's a scene where she appears in Cole's bedroom and she's vomiting, clearly stating that she's been poisoned. Cole goes to the funeral, the home funeral where the girl was buried. We find out that the stepmom or the mother has been poisoning her, making her more sicker and ill from a VHS tape. So that's his mission accomplished, basically. He's helped the girl with informing her father about how she really died. It's the fact that the mother was poisoning her with the food and all that kind of thing. So basically it's Cole's job to help these ghosts, because he's the only one who can see them. He's the only one that can communicate with them and help them, basically. That's why he's been traumatized by the ghosts, because they're all going to him for help. And the only way he can conquer it, his fears, is just by listening to them and communicating and all that kind of stuff. So in a way it all makes sense. And this helps Cole get confidence back. He bonds more with children, like when he was in that school play, But we still get to the mystery as to why Malcolm's marriage is failing and all that kind of stuff. And then that's where it comes to the biggest twist of all at the end of the movie. We find out that Malcolm's character is dead all along. So all along he's been dead. And the only way we find out how he's been bonding, it's obvious because his ghost has been talking to the little boy. The little boy can see him, hear him, so that's the only way they've been bonding. And so, because we learn when Vincent shot Malcolm at the start of the film, he actually died from the gunshot wound, and all along he's been a ghost. You know what I mean? And you know, so it makes clear why his wife was moving on with another guy. It states clearly why she was all depressed all the time. It states clearly why she wasn't communicating with Malcolm, because he was dead. You know, and that's the biggest twist. And that took me by surprise. I never saw that coming. You know, I thought it was a great little twist. You know, a great twist. And from start to finish overall, I think this movie was a masterpiece for what it was, being a really great thriller. I must say this is one of my favourite thrillers. I just can't believe I haven't thought about it much till now, until I heard all that on the radio about them talking about this movie. So I think it's a brilliant movie. Great acting from all actors. The suspense was there. The good storytelling was there. There was not one scene of boredom. I didn't think the movie dragged. And all those scenes about learning about the backgrounds and bonding and all that, I thought it was interesting. There wasn't a scene in this movie where I thought, this is too long. This is not working. I didn't feel like that at all in this movie. You know, I will state more things about this movie. I mean, the film even got good reception from critics also. Yeah, The Sixth Sense received positive reviews from critics. The Sixth Sense was also scored 60th place on AFI's 100 Years of 100 Thrills, America's Most Heart-Pounding Movies. So just like I said, it was a heart-pounding movie, and I worked at that with the audience. It had a budget of $40 million and made $672.8 million at the box office. That's impressive. Like I said, I've already mentioned the release date, 1999, August 6th in the United States. That's right. And that's basically it. I mean, according to the information I'm reading here, the film was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, the Best Original Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Supporting Actress. So the film did get its award nominees and all that kind of shit. So yeah, fantastic film overall. Really love this. Whatever version this is, don't get too excited about the special features. There's nothing to be excited about unless you pick up a better version. But please like, rate and comment this, everyone, and email me if you've got any questions. I've enjoyed reviewing this. The Sixth Sense, it was a classic back in the day, and I still think it's a great movie to watch today. You know, please check this out if you're a fan of thrillers and all that kind of shit. It's a must-see in that category. So thanks a lot, everyone. Please like, rate and comment this, and email if you've got any questions. Peace out.